Hi guys, welcome back to the channel and coming with a book review for today, The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson from 1959. So again, as with all of my reviews, they are spoiler free, so don't want to ruin anything. And I also want to make sure that you don't think like all this guy does is read horror. That's not true. I have been in a streak of reading quite a few, but really glad. Some of them are really not what I thought they would be, and in a good way. So, The Haunting of Hill House. Now, I was drawn to this, as you see again on the book, which I hate. It's not a sticker, it's just printed on there. This was the inspiration for a Netflix series, which was excellent. But if you saw that series, it's not the book. And I like how it even says there it's the inspiration. It's not the series wasn't based on the book. The book was the inspiration for it because the story is nothing like what you see in the series itself on Netflix. So, The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. What we have in the story, a quick synopsis, is Hill House, obviously this haunted house, and there is Dr. Montag. I assume, guessing that's how you say his name. He is trying to gather people who have some kind of exposure in their past to paranormal events because he wants to investigate Hill House and try to find scientific proof as to the existence of ghosts and paranormal phenomenon. So he puts out uh, all these invitations. All he can get in response, there are two women, Eleanor and Theodora, and then a heir of Hill House named Luke. And so the four of them go to Hill House together, and their intent is to observe and see what happens in this alleged haunted house. And this is, first, let me say, it's not going to be for everybody. It's a very different writing style because it's from the 1950s. There's that element to it, but not only the language and how those characters are written, but even just the way Shirley Jackson writes this may not be for everybody. There are times where, again, not giving details, but a character sees something and it scares them and they tell another character to run. But Jackson never tells you what they saw. So if that is the kind of thing that's going to bother you, this will probably drive you crazy. This is really built around, again, what I'm seeing with a lot of these, the horror novels that I'm drawn to is really focusing on kind of the psyche of the main characters. And we definitely see that on display. There's, again, with that haunted, there's a what is that noise? So there's there a array of emotions, and even how Shirley Jackson portrays this, you really have to be careful because there's times where terrified, and the very next scene they're as happy as can be, and at first it feels very very inconsistent. Begin to realize that what's happening to them psychologically is, again, I don't want to get spoilery, but you see the house beginning to get a hold on them. And so you can see their emotions going back and forth. And but Shirley Jackson never comes out and explains that. That's something that you just pick up over the course of reading it. So again, she does a masterful job at creating tension and creepiness without really showing you a lot. A lot of it is kind of the assumed events that are taking place. There aren't a lot of scenes of actual haunted activity taking place. There are hints at things. They're hearing things, but there's not a lot of them seeing stuff. There are a couple situations. So, really, kind of more of a psychological look at investigating this haunted house. So, again, a very beautifully written book, very differently written. It's not going to come out and tell you everything at face value. There's going to be times where the characters seem like they're acting out of character or they're acting completely contrary to how they should be acting. But at least for me, that's all part of the effect that the house is having on them. And so, great character study between these four characters, how they interact, and at times how they seem to be really close, and the next minute they seem really far. And so, there's a great subplot of just the interaction of these four characters. And I think sometimes what's really fascinating me about the horror books I've been reading so far this year is sometimes when horror books are made into movies or TV shows, obviously there's going to be a greater focus on the scares, the jump scares, really going all in on the visuals of it. And really, what I'm finding with the books is they're not as blatantly in your face. They really rely more on the character interactions. For example, right now I'm reading The Shining, and so there'll be a review of that coming shortly once I finish that. But again, Haunting of Hill House, very well written, very different from what I've read before. It's kind of somewhere in between Dracula and a Stephen King book in terms of the writing style. So if you're not sure if that's going to sit well with you, again, it was a very different read, not only in terms of the language, but even in terms of just sometimes feeling very choppy from, okay, they 1 second ago they were terrified. Now, 2 seconds later, they're gleeful and they're happy. What is going on? But again, all of it feeding into that sense of this story of the house is very much a main character in this story. So again, Haunting of Hill House, very well written. Really, I felt makes you feel like you're in the house with these four main characters, uh, just feeling the effects of being in this haunted house and spending time there day after day. So I think a classic. I know it's not maybe old enough to technically be a classic, but this would probably be considered a classic in terms of horror. As of right now, I would say this is probably number 9 on my all-time top 10 list of novels. Really enjoyed this. Very glad I picked it up. Heard a lot of great things about it, and I would say definitely would have to be considered a classic. There's not going to be a lot of stuff that's going to keep you up at night if you're worried about that. There are a couple scenes for me. I think the most powerful scene, and I won't say what it was, but the closing line of chapter 5 is when everything becomes real. When because everything is slowly building up. It's like Shirley Jackson just slowly turning the dial on the creep factor, and it kind of hits its peak at the very end of chapter 5, and everything takes off from there. So, very enjoyable read. Glad I picked it up. Found it at Ollie's, I think it was, for very cheap. So, a great find there. So, really recommend it. I would give it 5 stars. Just beautiful classic. A couple things I might change, but I think that would take away from part of the mystery and the just the aura of this book. So, very well done. Really encourage you to pick it up and read it, even if you're not a horror person. You might enjoy this. Again, it's not very long. It's a pretty easy read, other than the getting used to some of the style issues. So, The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. A lot of fun to read. Encourage you to check it out. So, thanks again for stopping in and watching, and we'll catch you back here with the next, which will probably be Stephen King's The Shining. So, thanks a lot and take care.